Welcome to the Peachtree Podcast. Peachtree Learning Center is a nonprofit in Middle Tennessee dedicated to training and discipling students in all the fine arts to become excellent and skilled in order to spread the kingdom of God into the world of the arts. On this podcast, we will discuss topics designed to encourage, uplift, educate, and equip people to proclaim the kingdom more deeply in their own families and communities. Right.
But informs the work, and it is a beautiful thing to see that circle.
Right. Yeah, no, I think that is definitely a circle. He likes to draw with circles.
He does. He does, absolutely.
I like circles. He's good at it. I have another quote that says, it's from the same, this is actually from Andrew Peterson's Adorning the Dark. And it says, since we were made to glorify God, worship happens when someone is doing exactly what he or she was made to do. That's pretty concise. It's hard to kind of commentate on that, but
it's true.
It's true. Like, we are made to worship. We will be filled with something. And if we fill ourselves with good truth, beauty, goodness, that's what comes out of us.
Oh, definitely.
So I feel like when you speak of being a believer and creating art, and then I go and look at your art, I know that that's a reflection of what God has put in you. There's a light to your painting, even in the dark spots. There are lights in your painting. Because you have that always with you. That even
there's hope. I have hope.
Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's a quote from Art in the Bible. The Christian life is to be a thing of truth and also a thing of beauty in the midst of a lost and despairing world. And it's by Francis Schaeffer. And that quote, personally, I feel like it tags on to what you just read as well. Our life is a life of worship, or should be a life of worship.
It is. I think everybody's is, whether they know it or not.
Exactly.
The bottom line is,
that's right.
We will be worshiping something.
That's exactly right.
And so at the end of your life, what do you think you want people to see that you worshiped in the things you leave behind?
Absolutely.
So I don't even think we all have to be artists, because the Lord knows I don't draw at all. And I'm not good enough at music to really have done much with it, but I appreciate and imbibe it well. But I look at the collection of books and the collection of paintings and the things that are in my home are all have a certain flavor, and I can see that that's something, that's a pattern in life, and I think every one of us probably has that.
We sure do, and we're all creative beings because we're created in His image, so we have that ability to create. It just looks different across the board. Everyone's creativity looks different.
He laughed. He winked and laughed. There's another one this is again from Andrew Peterson, which this book, we're mentioning books, and I wanted to purposefully do that because people listening to this podcast, I would really love for some of you to go and just find a good book, and these are several really good ones. So his book, Adorning the Dark, he comes back with another quote, and I say it. I'll read it. I want you, dear reader, to remember that one holy way of mending the world is to sing, to write, to paint, to weave new worlds. Because the seed of your feeble yet faithful work fell to the ground, died, and rose again. What Christ has done through you will call forth praise from lonesome travelers long after your name is forgotten. They will know someone lived and loved here. That's beautiful.
Wow, that is beautiful. That is an excellent book. I highly recommend it. In fact, my artist apprentices will be reading that, or should be reading it now.
Oh, yes.
It is an excellent book just to think about our calling as creative people, whether you sing or paint or play an instrument or write. It's a beautiful book about our calling.
It's a very personal book.
It is.
Because he shares a lot of his personal story. But it's a very powerful book because it's a powerful story. And the insights that he's gleaned along the way were definitely worth picking up and reading. There's another book called All God's Children in Blue Suede Shoes. And I've got a couple of quotes from that too. One is, if our cultural lives are sick. He talks a lot in this book about how we got to a place where our culture is considered pop culture versus high culture, or some kind of edifying culture that in the past were hallmarks of civilization.
Right. It's like popular culture, things that are everyday. And so that means the things that are painted or created are everyday type items.
But also means that there's no objective standard to be held up.
Exactly.
That they only are compared to each other.
Right.
And so there's no above.
Yes.
So this quote is, if our cultural lives are sick, it is likely to be an impediment to our spiritual lives. Much popular culture promotes a spirit of restlessness, and this is likely to be an obstacle to prayer or to reflection and to attentiveness to the needs of others. Popular culture also has a limited range of sensibilities. I've never heard a work of pop music that has the depth of poignancy of the opening bars of Brahms' German Requiem, for example. I know of no similar lessons in popular music. And I, as a musician background type person, I can think of songs that have really provoked that kind of response in me. But I understand what he's saying on some levels, that with pop culture only comparing works to each other, and there's only lateral movement there. You don't have anything objective that you're being held to or any kind of standard. Whereas in the day of Brahms, he was held to a certain kind of measurement outside himself. And so the goal was to rise to that as a musician in that time. Right. So when I think about the Renaissance of visual art, let's say, and you think about all the amazing works that came out of that time period, those people were being called to a standard outside themselves. They weren't just comparing to the person next door or comparing sales numbers to the person next door.
Right.
It's just a very different mindset.
It truly is. Yes. And I think during that time, if you look at the Renaissance, of course, we know that the church, with its issues at the time or not, but they still were the ones typically who were commissioning those pieces.
They were.
And so we do see a lot of religious art, but we also see master artists working with apprentices and teaching them and guiding them, and not just putting things in front of them saying, here you go, have at it. Really guiding them and helping them grow. And some of them, of course, very much grew into a very similar styled artist, but at the same time could take their own voice and show that as well. I think that there's something beautiful about an artist having someone that they're teaching, whether that be an art teacher. Of course, I'm kind of, partial to those. Or just an artist, a musician, somebody who is mentoring someone else younger than them to help them grow. That's exactly what I was about to say, because it is discipleship, and it's through that training and guiding, there are many beautiful things that come out of that than just being in your studio, whatever studio you're working in, and just being held up all by yourself all the time. Right. But being able to share and to work with one another, and through that community is built. And community is something expected by the Lord for us to have, to build us up. And so I think when you look at some works of art or our popular culture, it becomes all about self and all about me. And that is dangerous ground. Very, very dangerous ground.
It's idolatry.
It is. Absolutely. It becomes, it creates this cycle of comparison in artists, from one artist to another, a cycle of pride, a cycle of this anticipate, like, I got to do the next best thing. I've got to get to that next best thing. Or maybe you just need to be and breathe and create and just remember why you're doing this. But popular culture, I feel like, just fuels all many negative things. Now, I don't think that every single thing in popular culture is bad. I don't mean that at all.
I agree.
And I think there's some fun things that come out of that. But you also have to look at it through the proper lens. That's what's important.
Yeah, it is. And even going to an art museum or going to a musical event, being able to be able to go there with eyes that see kingdom purpose in those things. You can find that in totally secular works of art. You can see
for sure
that his kingdom purpose is still in there.
Absolutely.
Because that's just how you're wired. You can't unwire yourself.
That's right.
No matter what we think nowadays.
That's exactly right.
We can't unwire ourselves. So that's how we're made to look at it. And that's something I really have loved watching flourish in Peachtree settings, is having somebody like you at the helm of art and being able to kind of head up that department and continually have an emphasis on imparting, but also you have your own studio and you're creating your own art. And that's super important, I think, for most creative disciplines, that you can't get in a rut, I don't think, the same way as a teacher if you're also still creating and doing your own creative thing.
It's true.
It's very easy to get in a rut, I think, with any kind of teaching discipline unless you're still actively participating in learning yourself and growing yourself.
Would agree.
I think that's something that's kind of unique about Peachtree is there's a lot of artisans and artists that are part of our teacher community, and they're all still doing the thing. They're all still out there creating and being creative. And alongside that, they're imparting what they know and discipling other people to come behind them and do it well. And I can name several examples of that in visual art and music. And
definitely.
Even in heritage crafts, I've seen some young people pick up sewing and quilting, and they're going really beautiful places with it.
Absolutely.
Because our teachers were willing to impart what they knew.
Yes.
So it's a beautiful cycle. That's another cycle.
It is. I know when I'm creating and really in that flow of creating on a regular basis, it makes me a better teacher because I'm excited. I'm even more ready to impart, and I'm ready to show that look what I learned, or not look at my artwork, but look what I learned. And I learned this because I did A, B, and C. And so it's a real opportunity to grow myself, but also to help them grow as well.
I think it's beautiful. So we've probably gotten in a lot of good conversation and are probably ready to wrap this episode up. And we didn't even touch the second topic.
Yes.
So come back next week and you'll get to hear the second topic we were going to talk about with art and creativity and pursuits of those things. So in the meantime, you have a blessed week, and hopefully we'll see many of you at Peachtree this week.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lori.
Take care.
Thank you so much for joining us today. To support this podcast, please go follow us on your podcast platform of choice. And if you're interested in knowing more about the work of Peachtree, please go visit our website at peachtreelearningcenter.com for more information.